Hello, Chris Cardenas, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk on every Sunday at noon here on YouTube. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. If you feel you need a therapist, please contact my sponsor, betterhelp.com, BETTERHELP, betterhelp.com/Chris Cardenas. John will put that up in the description and all that sort of good stuff. They are an online losing my mind here, online counseling company. And you can get hooked up with a counselor if you're in a different country, like you don't like the counselors that are in your country. You can get on to betterhelp.com/Chris Cardenas, and they will set you up with somebody here in the States. Everyone is licensed. Everyone is a master's level or PhD level. If you don't like your counselor, you just go back on, fill out a few questions, and they will put you with somebody else. And it's great if you're in a small town and you don't want to see the counselors that are in your town. You can just get on to betterhelp.com/Chris Cardenas, and they will find you a counselor that's in your state, and it's online, which is great, which means you can do it from anywhere as long as you have a connection. So betterhelp.com/Chris Cardenas. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. I think I said that. The views and opinions don't represent anybody else except me. Boy, am I like off my game here, because YouTube changed how they do the live streaming, and they were like, you need to fill out this and you need to fill out that. And I'm like, what the? Anyway, hi guys, I'm back. All right. So, hello. All right. So today we are talking about religiosity and cults. So wait a minute, let me get other things out of the way here. So we've decided to go back to eBay to sell the mugs because it just was not working doing it through my thing, and it was like the post office was being weird. So eBay, if you would like any of the mugs, they are still for sale. I still have some. Please get them out of my hallway. That would be great. The books are also for sale. I'll be damned if I know what I did with them. Dear Lord, I am not organized this morning. So this is my first one. You can What's Wrong with Your Dad? The other one is You Can Lead a Horse to Water, but you can't make him cha-cha. No clue where it is. So those are my books. Susanna Quintana, awesome. She's got a book called You're Still That Girl. You can find that on her website, which is at susannaquintana.com. She's awesome. I love her. She and I will be talking, not today, but this week. I'm going to contact her. We're going to get together and talk about doing a seminar, hopefully in Palm Springs, hopefully in April or May. So that's the evil plan with that. As far as touring is concerned, I am planning on going back out on the road, God willing, and the creek don't rise. So the first one will be in Tempe, and that is on chriscardenas.com if you want to go over there and see what tickets are available. I am limiting the number because I don't know what the heck's going on with the variant and all that sort of good stuff. So Tempe, and then Fairbanks, Alaska, and then San Diego. So those dates should be up there. All right. I think that was it. Good Lord. Oh, and I forgot to tell you. So my third book is now at the editor. So my third book is on what it is to be a counselor, what it isn't to be a counselor, that kind of thing. If you're interested in becoming a counselor, I strongly recommend you read my book, because I give you the skinny on what is and what isn't the right idea to become a counselor. So anyway, there's that. So, okay. Whew. Hi. Okay, let's focus. Okay, so cults. Let's talk about cults. Let's talk about religiosity and cults. So all cult leaders are narcissists. Every single last mother-clucking one of them is a narcissist. There is no doubt about that. They are usually dark triads. They're definitely malignant. They are control freaks. So remember, dark triad is narcissism, control freak, which is Machiavellian, and psychopathy. Psychopathy. So they're nuts. They're like a psychopath. So every single cult leader is a dark triad. So you're going to see a lot of similarities between cult leaders and, little cults. So in other words, little cults being the families, the flying monkeys. Those are all like little mini versions of cults. So if you were raised in a family that had narcissism, abuse, psychopathy, Machiavellianism, control freak, etc., you're going to recognize a lot of these behaviors. Cults can be any religion. It's not just, Hare Krishna or, Eastern religions or Western religion. I mean, they can be literally any religion. So, and cults do the same exact playbook that individual narcissists do, because all cult leaders are narcissists. So it's kind of like all prunes are plums, but not all plums are prunes. So all cult leaders are narcissists, but not all narcissists go on to become like massive cult leaders. I mean, they have their little individual cults. So we're going to be talking about that. So, okay. So I've gotten a lot of questions on things that people have come across. It's kind of like, ooh, I joined this, this church or this religion or whatever, and I'm getting some really creepy vibes. What do I do? How do I get out? That kind of thing. So one of the things that you want to look for is all narcissists want to supplant your personality with theirs. So that's the soul killing. So this is what in every single article I have read, Psychology Today, American Psychiatric Journal, it's like they all want to kill the soul to replace it with their own version of themselves. So somebody who's going to be subservient, somebody who's going to answer to their every whim, if they say jump, you ask how high, that kind of, does this sound familiar? It should sound really familiar to people that have been in families that have narcissism. So the cult leaders are wanting to do soul killing, and that's what they do. And so they break people down using gaslighting. Funny. Where else have we heard that? Lying, cheating, stealing, rewriting history, all of that, and then tell you, oh, no, you didn't hear that. Oh, no, you didn't see that. Oh, no, you misunderstood. No, you're wrong, which causes then cognitive dissonance in the person and makes them more malleable to brainwashing, which is exactly what cults do. Cult leaders tend to be larger than life. Narcissists tend to be larger than life. They get off on the adoration. They get off on the power more than anything else. And the crazy thing of it is that like all narcissists, their ultimate goal is they want to kill you. They want to kill you. That's basically what they want. I mean, if you look at these major death cults, I guess you could call them, the David Koresh's, the Jim Joneses, the Applethwaites, the Heaven's Gate, that whole thing. They ultimately, they killed their followers. It's what the, and again, I've said it multiple times, narcissists want their target of abuse dead because they're angry. They're angry that they don't have the joie de vivre that the target does. And that's exactly what these cult leaders do. So, I mean, they come off, the term love bombing. Ooh, I got to turn my sound off. Did I turn my sound off? No. The term love bombing came out of the Moonies. So when the Moonies were big back in I'm dating myself here, back in the 70s, they would troll the streets and they would look for anybody that seemed lost. So that seemed low self-esteem, runaways, that type of thing. And they would just love them, love them, love them. And so when they were interviewed by I think it was KTVU out of San Francisco, by a journalist, they were like, well, how do you get people to join? Oh, we love bomb them. And that's where the term love bombing came from, which is a little scary. So what we're dealing with here is communal narcissists. So communal narcissists are the ones that take the religiosity and use it to abuse. So almost every single abusive narcissist, whether it's a female or male, doesn't matter. Remember, they can be either sex, doesn't matter. They use religion to control, to manipulate, to fear, obligation, and guilt. And that's why I keep telling people, if you feel fearful, if you feel obligated, or if you feel guilty, you want to take a real hard look at, is this a healthy relationship or not? And that includes looking at religions, cults, social groups, whatever. So, because remember, these guys are not limited to just religious groups. They can be businesses. They can be politicians. They can be, social media type people. They're everywhere. They are literally everywhere. And you have to trust your gut, and you have to be careful, and you have to be very wary of anybody who is like, oh, my way is the only way. No, it's not. No, it's not. There's plenty of people out there that have got really good advice and really good shows. So yeah, anybody who's like, oh, I am the light in the way. It's like, I'm sorry, but there's only one Jesus. Thank you. Go bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you got to be really careful because they present themselves as somehow having a special connection to God or a special connection to the universe. They can be found in non-religious cults. So they can be like the New Age type stuff or, transcendental meditation. There was a whole article on that, on how one person lost her brother to transcendental meditation and this idea that he was levitating when really he was just bouncing around on his butt. I mean, it's just, the things. So, okay. So basically, cults are communal narcissists. This is why their behavior is so similar, because they're all narcissists, okay? They just do it on a grand scale because they have the psychopathy behind it that gives them the absolute arrogance and no emotion to care what they are doing to these people. They only care about themselves. And this is also why they target people who are widowers. They target people with money that are lonely. They target, because they're trying to get the Benjamins. So you want to be careful of that. So I want to talk a little bit about things that I have heard from people that are huge red flags. Being asked to have a meeting with clergy and behind closed doors interrogated. So in other words, the church or the clergy, whoever is running the church, does not allow you to have your own life. Like, church should be here and your life should be here. And yes, you should be doing the golden rules and all of that good stuff. But they will interrogate you, like, make you wrong, make you bad, shame you. Oh, does that sound familiar? Because that's not Christian last time I talked to somebody. So anyway, the point being is they use these tools to erase who you are so that they can put in who they want you to be. So if you're going to clergy and you're asking for help, they should be there to help you. They shouldn't be there to shame you. They can guide you. They can say, ooh, maybe not do this, but think about this, kind of thing, instead of, oh, you're going to hell. And if you don't give me 10% of your money, then you're going to hell. And that's literally what I've been hearing from some people in some of these cultish type religions, is that you can buy your way out of trouble. And I'm like, that's not how it works, kids. So you want to be very careful of anybody who takes you behind closed doors and starts interrogating you, or who calls you out in the middle of some ceremony or something to shame you. That too is not good, because that is a way to make you more malleable to doing the right thing for them, so that you don't do whatever it is that you did that pissed them off. It was probably the right thing for you. Does that make sense? So you want to be very careful of that. So there is that. Hang on. Okay. Okay. Clergy or whoever the cult leader is, spending time providing spiritual direction, but then on a dime, flipping the switch and screaming and yelling and shaming. So that's kind of what I was talking about. So that's the intermittent positive rewards. So in cult-like situations, okay, guys, yes, ask your questions, but John is not going to put them up until the half an hour mark. So, in cult-like situations, they'll love bomb, right? They suck you in. And then as soon as the claws are in, then whoever the leader is starts really doing the intermittent positive rewards. I love you, I love you, I love you, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you, I love you, I hate you, I love you, I'm shunning you. I love you, I'm shunning you. And that's a terrible, painful feeling to have. So when an organization shuns somebody, that's pain, and it registers in the same pain center that physical pain registers in, and they know it. These guys don't do this out of the blue. They know it. They know what works. They've had enough practice. They know it causes pain. They know it'll cause the person, especially if they are codependent, to do whatever they need to stop hurting. And that's why they do the intermittent positive rewards. We'll do what I want and I'll love you. Oh, you're not doing what I want? I'm going to shun you. And that's how these cults work. And it's this reward punishment system. It's like a POW camp. And I think I've talked about this before. In Vietnam, they would do the intermittent positive rewards to try to get the prisoners to give up information, to comply, to whatever. And so this is well documented. So, be very careful of anybody that does that. He flips from loving and kind to screaming and yelling and making you wrong and shaming and that kind of thing. Being berated by clergy members behind closed doors, we talked about that. Being told that we are not allowed to talk about our experiences with the organization. That's a huge red flag, because if they have nothing to hide, they ain't got nothing to worry about if you tell people. Let me just say that again. Any place that operates in secrecy, any place that operates in a thing of, well, you can't tell. And this happens in families, guys. Oh my God, hang on just a second. I'm really thirsty this morning. Hang on. So in families, how many times did my mom or dad say, oh, you don't air your dirty laundry. You don't tell anybody what's going on here. Well, yeah, because then the abuse can continue. So that is that danger, Will Robinson, danger. Do you see where I'm going with that? So any organization, whether that is a family, whether that is an individual, whether that is a church, whether that is a cult, whether it's a social organization, whether it's social media, whatever, if they're like, oh, you can't tell anybody what we do here. You can't air your grievances. You can't talk about your experiences. Okay, run. Do not walk to the nearest exit because there is something seriously wrong there. Because if they got nothing to hide, then they shouldn't be afraid of you talking about it. Boom, you know what I'm saying. So yeah, be very, very careful of that. Okay, hang on. Okay, being unwilling to allow you to get medical help. That is one of the number one things I read when I was going through these articles, is that they would harm people. This happened especially in David Koresh's thing, that people would get beaten, children would be beaten, children would be burned, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They weren't allowed to get medical help because they didn't want the outside world to know what they were doing. Again, huge red flag, huge red flag. If you're not allowed to go take care of your personal health and they're telling you, oh no, we're going to pray this away. There's a reason we have doctors. Hello. So we can use them, which is a good thing. So yeah. So it's like, you want to be very careful of anybody that's like, oh no, you can't go outside for help. You have to see our doctor here. No. Okay. Hang on. One more thing I want to get, and then I want to hit some of that. Good Lord. There's so much information. Being told who you can and cannot be friends with. So cults, whether they are narcissists, individual families, or whether they are a cult, like a cult religion, very loath to have you have friends outside of the cult, especially if they're not willing to be converted. That goes for families as well. They don't want you to have friends outside. They isolate the kids. They isolate people because they don't want to have outside influence going, wait a minute, we need to talk about this. What's the deal? What is wrong with this? You need to think about, they don't want anybody outside coming in and questioning what is happening, what is going on. So they don't want you to have friends outside, and they will tell you who you can and cannot be friends with. Individual narcissists will tell you who you can and cannot be friends with. That is a huge red flag. They will basically say, I don't like this person. They see me for what I am. I mean, they don't say that part, but they say, I don't like this person. I'm going to make sure you're not friends. And then they do, because they do not want the influence. They do not want you seeing the cult leader, the narcissist, for who and what they are. Okay, hang on. Let me get back over to this. Being forced to tell the details of the berating at a meeting with the clergy. So, in other words, you have no right to privacy. So if you, quote unquote, sinned, they want to hear all about it. None of their damn business. It depends on your religion. Obviously, there's some religions that have confession. That's a little different. But this is like a power tripping. Now we've got the story. Now we've got stuff over you, and we can now turn around and use it on you later. And that's what they do. So they will demand that you tell them all of your sins, and, critically, and they'll tell you, oh, you're a horrible sinner, and and now they've gathered. Remember how we talked about in the past? I've talked about how narcissists, when they get you, they gather information that can then be used against you at a later time. This is what that is. Because they're trying to gather all your sins, all the things that you did, so that they can then use it against you if it looks like you're going to leave, if it looks like you're going to get out of it, if it looks like you're leaving the family, if it looks like, I'll tell everybody. My attitude to that is, go ahead, biatch. I don't care. Go ahead, do it. That takes the power away from them. But when you're in the middle of it, it's really hard to stand up to that. And that is why leaving cults is so hard. That is why leaving abuse is so hard, because oftentimes these people will do things to get the dirt on you. So in an individual situation, they'll insist that you do some sort of sexual act that you don't want to do, and they'll film it. And then they'll say, oh, I'm going to release it. Well, that, my friends, is a federal offense. That is called revenge porn, and they will go to jail. Same thing with cults. They do that because they are counting on people not to know the law. They're counting on their targets of abuse to not be well versed in how to stand up to somebody like that threatens to use your past against you. Absolutely. So I've said it, I think I said it last week. I'm going to say it again. If there's anything in your past that you're ashamed of, own it. Own it. Because if somebody comes up to me and says, oh, well, you did this, this, and this, I'll be like, yeah, and point? Where are you going with this? No shame. I'll own it. Yeah, I did that. You're absolutely 100% correct. And then they deflate because it's like they've got nothing. So own your past. That is the biggest thing. Okay, so let me dive into, oh my goodness, running out of time. All right, cult leaders are larger than life. I think we've talked about that. Cult members are expected to subjugate their own needs for the good of the leader. And of course, the leader will phrase it, oh, well, it's for the good of the whole community. Oh, that was one other thing I was going to tell you. So I had another person come and tell me that they got involved in a small church, and the church was paying them to work for them, but then demanded that they take a 10% cut in their pay because they needed to tithe that back to the church. And the person was barely making it as it was. So we were talking, and thank goodness they chose to leave. So, but yeah, if they start messing with your money, if they start telling you how to tithe, no. If they start, that type of thing, no. It's an us versus them attitude. So that's, like I said, they don't want you to have your own friends. Feelings are devalued, minimized, or manipulated. Oftentimes, how many times do narcissists not allow us to cry? How many times do narcissists not allow us to get angry at what they've done? Ooh, that's a big one. Same thing with cults. If you call out the cult leader, oh, you're going to be shunned. You're going to be thrown out, and that's a good thing. So they don't want real emotions because they can't handle real emotions. Remember, narcissists do not feel the way we do. They can fake it for a certain amount of time, especially psychopaths, but nope, they can't maintain it. Questions and dissents are not allowed. You're not allowed to question, and that's, I'm sorry, but you should be allowed to question. You should absolutely transparent. You should be allowed to question. Well, why do we do this? Why do we do that? What is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of that? And it should be a teaching moment, but instead, cults and cult leaders and narcissists view it as a challenge to their authority, and how dare you ask a question? How dare you challenge my authority? So that's a red flag right there. The ends justify the means. The rightness of the leader and the cult justifies the behavior that violates most people's standards of ethics and honesty. Yeah. Closeness to the cult leader is a reward, and independence is punished. Same thing in a narcissistic family. If you are the golden child, you're rewarded like nobody's business. If you're seeing the cow in the corner of the living room taking a massive dump, you're punished because you're seeing the truth. So yeah, absolutely. Lies are repeated so often that they seem true. That's what abusers do across the board. And this is what I'm saying. It's like there's a playbook for all of them, like how to be a cult leader, how to be a narcissistic parent, how to be a narcissistic spouse. It's like they do all of the same things, and they repeat the lies and repeat the lies and repeat the lies because that's brainwashing. Because if you hear it often enough, you start believing it. And this is part of the soul killing that they do. If they start telling you that you're worthless and terrible and awful and horrible, and that they're the only way that you're going to get saved, you're going to start believing that. So it's really important to not believe the lies. Cognitive dissonance is what keeps us stuck in abusive relationships, whether it's religiosity within a family unit or whether it is a cult situation. So in family units, oftentimes there will be one person that is the abuser that uses the religion to manipulate and control the scapegoat, especially. They tend to be very homophobic. They tend to be very harsh, cruel, and judgmental. And remember, it's not just religion that it goes to. It can go to the opposite side of it too, the no religion at all. So it's but it's always, what's the word I'm looking for? It's rigid. It's like there's no room for, well, what about this? There's no room for that. It's like it's either this or that. Good, bad, black, white, all, nothing, because narcissists don't have the plasticity to switch and think about things outside the box. So they're rigid, and it has to be their way or the highway. So yeah, communication is coercive and deceptive. So they talk in circles. They, vague kind of things. They're never really accurate about what they're talking about. They use powerful forms of manipulation. There's nothing magical about what they do, but they try to pretend that it is. And the scary thing of it is that narcissistic cult leaders, which all of them are narcissists, often use NLP, which really is a shame, because NLP has been very useful in life coaching and other forms of therapy. So they will use neuro-linguistic programming to brainwash people, which is a shame, because like I said, if you use it correctly, it can absolutely help your client, but they use it to gain their own thing. So you want to be careful of that. 9 ways that many narcissists behave like cult leaders. And all I did was look up, cults, psychology today, and all of these articles popped up. And this is by Dan Newharth. He's a PhD. All individuals are high in narcissism. They inflate their own sense of importance. The similarities between narcissists and cult leaders include a tendency to lie and to turn others against each other for their own ends, along with the little tolerance for dissent. To escape the negative influence of a narcissist, be mindful of what you share with them. So again, the Moonies, when they were love bombing, would gather information, and then it would be used against them at a later date. All right, understanding the basics. No one joins a cult. They are recruited, and they are recruited based on their malleability, which is why they often go for people who are grieving, people who are widowed, people who are struggling with self-esteem, people who may or may not have learning disabilities, may or may not be on the autism spectrum. They look for people that they can work that hole open and then suck them in to the cult. So absolutely. And there's a difference between due and undue influence. So, and in all of these cults, you will find some people who are staying in them that are like, no, it's helped me, it's wonderful, it's this, it's that. And then you'll find other people who are like, no, it's damaging, it's horrible, it's awful. So, okay. They look for the vulnerable. I think I've said that. How are we doing on time? Oh my gosh, we're almost done. Okay. And they play on fear. They absolutely play on fear. And COVID has been one of the things that they have been using to try to suck people in. Well, you'll be safe with us. You'll be safe if you come here. You'll be safe if you live here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, they use all sorts of stuff. You want to examine any group that you get involved in. So in the Phoenix area, if you just look up cults in Phoenix, there's a list. So you want to examine any group that you're thinking about becoming involved with. There was one that one of my clients told me about, and she's like, oh, you need to look up this group. And I'm not going to name it because I don't want to get sued. But if you just look up cults in the Phoenix area, things will pop up. And it's supposed to be an empowering, find your power kind of new agey kind of thing. And every single article was like, this is a cult, this is a cult, this is a cult. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Excuse me. So you definitely want to examine anything you're going to get involved with. And like I said, anyone who's like, give me all of your money and I will buy your way into heaven, that's a huge red flag. Anybody who is controlling, manipulating, fearful, obligated, guilting, all of that. These are all huge red flags that you do not want to be a part of this group. There's many, like I said, there's many types of different cults. They're everywhere. So, okay. So what they're banking on is the personality change. How many of us have seen someone that we loved get involved with either a cult or a cultish family or an abuser, and their personality started changing? So that's part of the soul killing. That's how they control them, is that they change their personality and they lie to them frequently, and they convince them that they're the best thing for them. And they start believing it, and then they start acting like them. And it's painful to watch. So the last thing I wanted to talk about before we go into the questions is, okay, the definitive guide to helping people trapped in a cult. I don't know if it's the definitive guide, but it is definitely the guide to helping people trapped in a cult. And this is by Stephen A. Hassan, PhD, Freedom of Mind. So when you are dealing with somebody who is trapped in a narcissistic relationship, whether that is in a cult situation, a relationship situation, a boss, friendship, whatever, giving them facts and figures is not going to change their mind. It is not. I mean, you can hand them all the books you want, and if they're really not interested in learning about narcissism and learning about what's going on, they're not going to do anything. You have to be patient and respectful when asking questions. You cannot attack the cult leader. You cannot attack the narcissist, because if you do, they're going to dig their heels in. You know this. We all know this. We've all been there. Why? Because targets of abuse are groomed to protect the abuser. You watch kids do it during divorces all the time. They side with the abuser as opposed to the healthy parent, because there's more danger in going against the abuser than there is in going against the healthy parent. So, that's something to keep in mind. Teach by sharing similar experiences and examples. Learn about mind control techniques so you understand what you're up against, neuro-linguistic programming. Fine. If the narcissist can use it, then I say the good people that are trying to get them out of these narcissistic relationships can use it as well. So go pound sand, narcissists. So that you just want to keep the conversation light. Don't get angry. Don't get defensive. Don't start attacking, because that's not going to work. Become informed about the cult, or become informed about narcissistic abuse so that you understand what you're dealing with. Don't make the mistake of trying to rationally argue. It won't work. Rebuild the rapport and the trust. Remind them of how you were in the past. Hey, we were such good friends. Hey, you're my cousin. Hey, whatever. Start getting them to think about that. Now, what that's going to do is that's going to cause a lot of cognitive dissonance in the target of abuse, in the cult member, because they're going to be like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I do like you. Wait a minute, but this person is saying I can't like you. Well, that's what the abusers want, is they want that cognitive dissonance. Some people are able to overcome the cognitive dissonance and stay connected to that person. Others are not. So if they cannot overcome the cognitive dissonance, it's not for lack of you trying. I just want to make that very clear. So you rebuild the rapport and the trust if you can. Do what you can to remove or minimize anything that causes the cognitive dissonance. So if you're going to meet with them, with them away from the abuser, obviously, away from the cult, away from, and try to encourage them to start thinking for themselves. Ask thought-provoking questions while being warm and curious. Keep the conversation positive and productive and civil. Adopt a general tone of curiosity and interest in their positions. Don't tell them anything. Just listen, and remind them of who you are and who they are. Try to get them to look at things from many different perspectives. Teach them about indoctrination and mind control, and that's going to be a little trickier, because once you start talking about that, that's when they're going to get defensive, so be aware of that. Share feelings, perceptions, not judgments. Stick to I statements. Ask questions, and then wait for them to think and respond. Like, don't be afraid of the silences, because sometimes when you ask somebody who's in the middle of a cognitive dissonance episode, they're not going to be able to respond immediately, because their brain is literally like popping popcorn at that point, because it's like, wait a minute, but this person told me this, but you're telling me this, and wait a minute, and I should feel this way, but I feel this way, and they're not going to be able to answer. Just be silent. Sit in the silence. It's okay. An abundance of facts will not help. So you just want to let them know that you're going to be there, and you just be there when you can. And other than that, there's really not much you can do to get somebody out of an abusive relationship or to get somebody out of a cult. In the old days, they used to do the very dramatic kidnapping and then reprogramming, and I don't recommend that. So, yeah, just be aware of that. Okay, how are we doing on time? And I went over. All right, so we are going to hit the questions. All right. Okay, so anyway, I hope that answered the question about cults, narcissism, and cults can be families too, guys. I think you recognize a lot of these behaviors are not just the massive cults. It's like, oh, isn't that interesting? This family demanded that everybody live on the compound with them and that nobody leave, and that they didn't have their own friends and they all had to socialize together. Well, that's a cult. So it can be a cult of one, it can be a cult of a family, it can be a massive, huge cult. So anyway, there it is. Okay, let's hit the questions. All right, brainwashing is real. Is it recognized in psychology and the DSM? Yeah, absolutely. FBI, hello, brainwashing is real. Yes, it is. Can brainwashed people, alienated children with cult-like father, wake up on their own, or do they need deprogramming? What they need is an outside person to continue that connection to reality. and keep asking questions with curiosity and with love. And hopefully at some point, they're going to start seeing the difference, contrast and compare, contrast and compare. Does it always work? No. Sometimes the children are just, that's it. They're done. They're with the person who's abusive, and then there's nothing more you can do. If you can get them into counseling, this is why I'm saying, if any of you guys are getting a divorce, for the love of God and all that's holy, put it in your divorce decree that the children get to have counseling and you get to have say in who they go to. And you don't just go with whoever the abuser picks, because the abuser will inevitably pick somebody who knows nothing about narcissistic abuse, who is fresh out of college, or who is a narcissist like they are. So, anyway, there that is. So you want to get them into counseling if you can. You want to maintain a good relationship with them if you can. Sometimes they come back. So I had one that there was a huge, lots of drama, lots of trauma. The parent lost to the other parent. It sucked. And I just kept saying, maintain a relationship. Even if the kid is telling you to go pound sand, maintain a relationship. Let them know you care. Not constantly, but enough to know that there's a line there. And eventually the kid did come back when they started seeing how the other parent really was. So yeah, it can happen, but it takes persistence and it takes patience. And I know a lot of us don't have patience, but you have to have patience. It's taken years to do this brainwashing. It's going to take years to undo it. And when the kid does, jump on it, get into counseling with them, get into a good counselor, get into a good trauma therapist, get into somebody that understands narcissistic abuse, get in with somebody that they can vent to. Absolutely. All right. We are about to have an empty nest. Am I kidding myself that my narcissistic spouse will be less stressed and life will be better? Yes, you are. So they create drama. So narcissists, personality disordered people, whether it be malignant narcissists or malignant borderlines, cannot stand quiet. They cannot stand stress-free life because there's all these thoughts going on up there that are not nice. Narcissists love to project it out onto everybody else. So if they don't have somebody to project it out onto, you're the closest one. So be aware, there's going to be stuff. So they don't get better with age, guys. They don't. They get worse. They get worse because as all the kids leave, as things start calming down, they don't like it and they will create their own drama. Guarantee it. And it's just no bueno. So I hope that answered your question. If you have any questions about that, read The Object of My Affection is in My Reflection, Coping with a Narcissist by Raquel Lerner. Great book. And it basically describes what narcissists do. They can't stand peace and quiet. They can't stand calm. They can't stand, because it's not exciting. It's not, they don't get to control. Their whole, how do I explain this? If they don't have someone to control, they cease to exist, basically. They implode. They absolutely become that fallen narcissist or that collapsing narcissist. So, and like I said, I saw them at the nursing home, the care facility that my mom was at. So if they don't have somebody to control, they just spin out of control because they have nobody to boss around, yell at, project onto, play games with, whatever. So be very aware that it's probably going to get turned on to you. So be careful. Okay, back when, about 40 years ago, long before the term PTSD, leaving a cult, or returning as a veteran, etc., was called deprogramming. Is trauma therapy now still considered deprogramming? Well, deprogramming was kind of like okay, how do I explain this? And this is something I forgot to say while I was talking about the cults. If you look at how they brainwash people, if you look at how they make them more malleable, they sleep deprive them. Sound familiar? It sure does to me. They sleep deprive them. They deprive them of food. They deprive them of sleep. They deprive them of sunshine. They deprive them of exercise. They deprive them to put those thoughts into their head so that they respond accordingly. So the deprogramming was kind of like the reverse of that, and they would kidnap them and they would put them in a room and they would start working with them. And, it's not quite as dramatic as that. Basically what it is that when you're leaving a cult, whether it's a narcissist individual, a family, a boss, a friend, or an actual cult, like, Heaven's Gate type of thing, you get in with a good trauma therapist, and the trauma therapist starts peeling the layers of the onion. So we start with the first, most recent kind of thing. Okay, this happened to you, and then this happened to you, and then this happened to you, and this happened to you. Now we're talking about your family of origin. Okay, and who did the cult leader remind you of? And then we start talking about that. And then we start trying to see where I'm going with that. So it does take time. It's not going to be an overnight process, guys. It's not. It's probably a few years, I would say, probably 3, I'm guessing, is an estimate, depending on how deep they were into it and how much they're willing to get out of it. Like if they've got the will, then they'll do it. If they don't, they won't. So yeah, so it's deprogramming, but it's not the way it was in the 70s, if that makes any sort of sense. If you have any other questions on that, just, IM me, or you can ask them and John will put it up. So, or I can answer it in the midweek video. Okay, so I hope that answered your question. What is the ultimate goal of these cults? After the narcs get their brainwashed following, then what? Usually it's never enough for narcs and they need more, but for what? So ultimately, the goal of most of the cults is, well, depending on how crazy the cult leader is, Jim Jones killed his following. Applethwaite killed his following. David Koresh had his following killed, basically. They ultimately want people to die for them. They have this Messiah complex. They think they're God, quite literally. And they want people to show their loyalty. That's the thing. Loyalty, fealty, that is their all. Prove to me you're willing to die for me. And that's the ultimate, narcissistic supply for them. It's like, oh, look, all these people are willing to die for me. Just need to take a shower. Ugh. You know what I'm saying? It's gross. It's disgusting. And no, it's never enough. It's never enough because narcissists and psychopaths do not feel the way we do. They do not have that rich inner life. They don't have that joie de vivre. They don't have that happiness at just being alive. It's always, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? So they'll do the whole, okay, give me money because we need to build a bigger church. Okay, great. They got the bigger church. Well, I don't like the church. I don't like the politics of this town. We need our own island, or we need our own whatever. And so then it's something bigger and better and badder and whatever, and it's always never enough, never enough, never enough, never enough. And the ultimate goal, like I've said before, narcissists want us dead. They do, because it's the ultimate power trip for them. And it's the ultimate, show of how powerful they are if they can convince people to kill themselves, or if they can work people to death. That's the other thing they do. They use the cult members to gather money for them, so they get all the benefits. So people are working, either at jobs, and they're giving all their money to the cult member, which, hello, that also happens in relationships. How many times do narcissists say, I shouldn't have to work? You need to work. I shouldn't have to work. And so there's one breadwinner, and that one breadwinner is like busting their ass trying to get the household taken care of. The narcissist is reaping all the benefits, and meanwhile, this person is keeling over because they're working so much. So yeah, it's a game. It's like, how much can you do for me? And it's never enough. It's never enough. And ultimately, most of these cults end up killing their members because they're crazy, and that's what they want. They want the people who love them dead, which is nuts. So technical term, nuts. So yeah, it's all ego. It's all in service of ego. And service of ego is never a good thing, and it never ends well. Ever. Like in the history of ever. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. Are narcissists known to molest their children? Yes, absolutely. Yes, male, female, doesn't matter. They absolutely, because they do not view the child as separate. I don't have a pen, but I do have a battery. So seriously, and it's still in its wrapper. They do not view us as anything other than this battery. We are something to be used. That's it. For their sexual gratification, for their money gratification, for their, sense of not being bored, whatever. We have no meaning to them. The kids have no meaning to them. Kids are just an extension of them. That's it. Yes, they will molest their own children. Yes, they will molest same sex, opposite sex, doesn't matter. If they're a psychopath, they're a psychopath. Hello. So yeah, they absolutely will do this. And a lot of the more vocal homophobic people, yes, they are usually not honest with themselves about their own sexuality. You betcha. So that is something to keep in mind. Do children who are molested go on to molest others? They can if they don't get the trauma handled. Absolutely. Why? Because the inner child is trying to work out this trauma that happened over here, and they're working it out in the absolute inappropriate way. So that's why it is so important that if there is molestation going on, get them to a counselor. Abso-freaking-lutely. Press charges. Do whatever you need to do. Keep that kid safe. That kid needs to work through all of those conflicting emotions with a therapist. And it's very confusing for a child, because sex feels good, guys. It does. It doesn't matter where it's coming from. It does feel good anatomically. There's nothing we can do about that. Okay. But then there's all this guilt about, oh my God, this was my mom. This was my dad. This was my cousin. This was my brother. This was and then there's all these conflicted feelings because obviously sex feels good. So, that's why you got to get the kid to a therapist, because they're going to be messed up in the head about sexuality, their own sexuality, relationships, how to cope with the shame, the guilt, the feelings, etc. So yeah, get them to a therapist. Abso-freaking-lutely, and press charges if you can. Have you heard the phrase thought terminating click? Thought terminating click. Can you talk about it? Well, okay. I do know, and I might be off on this one, so please, again, let me know. Cults do use thought stopping. Again, narcissists, psychopaths will comb through and psychology books, psychology websites, places like this, trying to find things that they can use to be a better abuser. And so thought stopping is used in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, to stop abnormal thoughts. So for example, let's say that you have the what if thought, right? I've talked about this before. So we have that internal critic, and if it's a healthy voice, it's not a critic, it's like a cheerleader. It's like, go you, you're fabulous, I love you, you've got this, don't worry, everything's good, go you, it's great. Oh, you screwed up, okay, make amends, good, you did, forgive yourself, move on. It's kind, it's gentle. If it's an internal critic, it's going to be what if, or it's going to be, oh, why'd you say that? Why'd you do that? Why are you saying, blah, 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 mean, vicious. So when the mean, vicious thoughts pop up, I teach my clients to stop that thought and replace it with a positive. Unfortunately, what abusers do is they use that same technique, but they're teaching them to stop the thoughts that are telling them, hey, this is a cult, you need to get out. Hey, this is abuse, you need to get out. Hey, you need to, like I said, they use NLP, neurolinguistic programming. They use techniques that are used in cognitive behavioral to help people be healthy. They're evil. They're basically just evil. Mother cluckers. Yep. Need to be off the face of the planet. I don't like any of them. So yeah, they do that. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but yes, abusers do use techniques used in psychology for good for their evil, which sucks. So there that is. Oh, I got an explanation of what thought terminating click is. Is a saying, often a tautology, that's repeated in order to relieve the stress of cognitive dissonance by avoiding all further consideration of a matter. For example, it includes, it is what it is. It's just common sense. You got to do what you got to do. Okay, so you don't ever want to do that. You always want to acknowledge the thought. So in other words, stuff pops up, right? And yeah, you could say, especially if it's a worry, you could be like, okay, it's a what if thought. Okay, well, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. But you want to play with it first. So in other words, a what if thought pops up, and instead of just going, it is what it is, you want to go, okay, there's the what if. Okay, I'm freaking out about this. Is it a probability? No. Is it a possibility? Yes. Is there something I can do about it? No. Okay, now I need to let it go. Does that make sense? So you want to avoid those, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, yeah, it is the terminating cliche. But you want to avoid those, oh God, my brain is just so toast today. It's cutesy, it's oversimplistic, it's like, and remember, abusers use a lot of the thought stopping stuff, like, well, it is what it is. It's already happened. Don't worry about it. To cover up their own stuff. No, you do need to worry about it. You do need to think about it. So, Yeah. So you don't want to just take a cliche at face value. You always want to be like, why are they not wanting to think about it? Why are they not wanting to do this? You do have to have a little bit of on guard kind of thing. So yeah, absolutely. Okay. I hope that answered the question. If it didn't, please let me know. I've been in therapy for 4 years to heal from my communal narc psychopathic mom. Her narrative in my head feels so hard to overcome. How do I finally start to trust my own perceptions? So you start small. So in therapy, I would strongly suggest talking about this with your therapist. It's like, look, I'm having a really hard time trusting my own voice, trusting my own gut. What do you recommend? So here's what I recommend. Work all of the self-esteem workbooks. Absolutely. Because when you trust yourself, you love yourself. When you love yourself, you trust yourself. Does that make sense? So you want to do that. You also want to do all of the boundary books. So like The Disease to Please by Harriet Breaker, Codependent No More by Melanie Beattie. Any books on codependency, you want to do that. And then start small. So for me, when I first started listening to my gut, it was like, okay, do I like peanut butter? Oh, God, no. No story, just no. Yeah. Do I like Reese's peanut butter cups? Yes. No story. That's my gut. Okay, I started with something I already knew the answer to. And then I just start expanding that. You feel how you feel when you get a yes or no answer to a yes or no question. And then you just start expanding on that and work on self-esteem. Do mirror work. I love mirror work. It's so funny. Everybody's always like, really? Is this going to help? And I'm like, yes, really. This is going to help. So when you do mirror work, you get up in the morning, you go to the full-length mirror, you make eye contact with yourself, and you say, hi, good to see you. Have a great day. You know what? I give you permission to trust your gut. And then walk out. And you just keep doing that. Eventually, the subconscious hears that and goes, oh, they want to trust their gut. Oh, okay. And it'll start happening. Is that reprogramming? You betcha. You're reprogramming yourself to trust your own instincts, to trust your own gut. When somebody's programming you to trust something outside of yourself, that's when you got to be careful. But if you're working with yourself and going, hey, I love you. Hey, you're a good person. Hey, it's okay for you to trust your gut. Hey, it's okay for you to say no. Hey, it's okay for you to have an opinion. Hey, it's okay for you to have a voice. That's okay because you're working on yourself. Does that make sense? So yeah, so start doing that. Okay, if brainwashing is recognized, then why don't the courts want to hear the word brainwashed? Because they want to hear it from a professional. They want to hear it from a psychiatrist. They want to hear it from an expert in brainwashing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And please remember, when I talk about the family court systems, how many of those judges are disordered themselves? I'll wait. It means I'm going to be here a long time. A lot of them are disordered themselves. So you never want to throw around psychological terms in a court unless you're a psychologist or you're a psychiatrist or you're a counselor or you're an expert in the field or whatever. So you leave that to the professionals. So, and of course, if you're dealing with a judge that's disordered themselves, they especially don't want to hear it because you're calling out their stuff. Remember that judge I had that I was not even, it wasn't even on me. I was there as an expert witness on what, Stockholm syndrome was, and I was educating the court. He was so pissed off because I was describing everything that narcissists do. And you could see him. His face started getting redder and redder and redder. And I was on the stand for like 2.5, 3 hours. It was crazy. And I'm just like, dude, you've got problems. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. So remember, a lot of them are narcissists themselves. A lot of lawyers are narcissists themselves. A lot of family courts judges are narcissists themselves. And they want to hear it from a professional. They want to hear it from an actual psychiatrist, psychologist, counselor, expert witness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what you want to do is if you are in a court battle with one of these guys, you want to talk to your attorney about getting psych evals and you got to get a good psych eval person because remember, if they're a dark triad, their psychopathy is pretty strong and they can fool people that are not well-versed in this. So yeah, and then you want that psych eval to speak for you. So, and again, some judges really put weight on those psych evals, and then the ones that are disordered don't. So it's a crapshoot. We really need to reform the whole family court thing. Yeah. Don't get me started. All right. What do you think of coercive control, and is it against the law? Okay, coercive control is formally defined as psychological abuse in intimate relationships that causes fear of violence or serious alarm or distress that has a substantial adverse impact on a person's day-to-day life, manifesting as a pattern of intimidation or humiliation involving psychological or emotional abuse. Yeah, I think coercive should be absolutely against the law, and it should be used in domestic violence cases. I do think, though, there needs to be evidence and proof, because how many times has a disordered person claimed to be the victim and tried to get the other person in trouble, call the police, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, again, we need to have a complete overhaul of the justice system. How and when do children realize they were sexually abused by the narc parent? If they're little, they'll start acting out. You want to watch for changes in behavior. So, like, a normally outgoing, happy child will suddenly become very introverted and depressed and ashamed of their bodies and all sorts of stuff. There's behaviors. You want to watch for behavior changes. Absolutely. If they start, children are obviously interested and curious about their own bodies and about other kids' bodies and things like that. But if they seem to know things that they shouldn't know, then that's a huge red flag right there. So yeah, absolutely. And then older children, obviously, some abusers wait until the kids are older. It depends on how crazy the abuser is, because my dad waited until all of us hit about age 13. Don't ask me, but that's what he did. And thank God he did, because I was old enough to have a voice and say, no, So, but with the younger ones, it'll be a behavior change, and it'll be overly sexual behavior, overly flirtatious behavior, overly sexualized behavior that's inappropriate for their age. So yeah, watch for that. Do you think cults have become more common or larger because of social media? Yes, I do. I think they've always been around. Because they were huge in the 70s. So in the 60s, everybody had this, the Beatles went to India and everybody was wanting enlightenment and all of this stuff. And so people came back, and then there was all of these cults that started popping up, the Sun Myung Moon and the Hare Krishnas, the Rajneesh, can't remember what the heck his name was, in Oregon. All of these cults started popping up. They've always been around, I think, but I do think that they have a greater reach now that there's social media and, that type of thing. So you just got to be careful and just do your due diligence. It's really, really important to watch how you feel around people. Watch how you feel in a group. Watch what's going on. If somebody's shutting somebody down and saying you can't talk about what we're doing, huge issue. So yeah, and est. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I did do est when I was in high school, I think it was. So, and yeah, it absolutely was a cult. Abso-freaking-lutely. You betcha. And, it was crazy. So yeah, so there's that. And I got out, and my sister got out. So that was good. So that's it, guys. All right. So next week, I want to talk about how to redirect your anger. Because so many survivors of abuse are like, I'm so angry. And I'm like, well, yeah, you should be, but we got to find healthy ways to redirect the anger. So we're going to talk about redirecting the anger so that you're not just, sitting there and stewing and all that sort of good stuff. So we're going to talk about anger and what you can do with it, how to redirect it, how to make it work for you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you're not harming yourself or anybody else. That would be good. What else was I going to say? Again, I want to thank my sponsor. I want to thank betterhelp.com, betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez for sponsoring me. I really appreciate it. I've gotten really good feedback from them, from people using them. So that makes me very happy. And next week, we're going to be talking about how to redirect anger so that it's healthy. And then at the end of the month, I'm going to have Diane Brown come on. She is a masseuse, a massage therapist. She's going to be talking about body armoring and why it's important to not body armor and how to work with that, and why massage can really help you heal from PTSD. Now, of course, some people can't get massages because they don't like to be touched, and that's okay. But we're going to be talking about, the ones that can use massage therapy to help heal, because I want to talk about that. All right, my loves, you guys go have a great week, and I will do the midweek questions sometime this week, and I will talk to you later. Bye.